catching football in the yard, trips to the drive-in, going fishing. Dad has always been by your side, making memories and taking care of the family. Today, Dad needs some help with daily care, and it's getting harder for him to live alone. St. Barnabas is here for your family. From on-site recreation to community outings, rest assured that your father will continue making memories in a safe, caring environment. To schedule a tour, call 724-443-0700. Ben Stein is coming to Pittsburgh. Join St. Barnabas Charities as we honor economist Ben Stein with the Hance Award at the St. Barnabas Founders Day celebration on Thursday, April 23rd at the Pittsburgh Marriott North in Cranberry Township. Call 724-625-3770 or order your tickets online at stbarnabascharities.com. Special thanks to presenting sponsor Cooks & Pierce. Proceeds benefit the St. Barnabas Free Care Fund.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jim Roddey, and welcome to the best of Allegheny County. The focus of our show is to introduce you to successful people who have a personal connection to Allegheny County. The show is presented by St. Barnabas, which has been caring for people in southwestern Pennsylvania since 1900. Today in Allegheny, Beaver, and Butler counties, we offer the full continuum of care, including independent living, living assistance, skilled care, medical center. We've got a memory care program, home care, and a lot more. Today we have a great show. It is the best of Allegheny County. I've really enjoyed the variety of guests we've had on the show over the past few weeks. And today we have a very, very interesting person, a friend of mine, actually. And he's going to talk to us about one of the most famous sports heroes ever to be in Pittsburgh, and actually one of the greatest baseball players of all time. In a few weeks, PNC Park will be filled with baseball fans. We hope. Fans of all ages will come to the park to cheer on their beloved Pirates. There's something special about going to the ballpark to watch the Pirates. Whether it's PNC Park, Three Rivers Stadium, or Forbes Field, Pirates fans can tell you the story about their favorite players. I remember all the people that tell me that when I moved to Pittsburgh that they were at the game when Mads hit the home run. And if that had been true, there would have had 200,000 people at that stadium. Today's show is going to focus on one of the Pirates' all-time best players, and I think one of the 4 or 5 greatest players ever to play baseball, and that's Roberto Clemente. Our guest is Chuck Berry. Chuck has a very special connection to Roberto, and with that brief introduction, let's talk to Chuck. Chuck, thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
Well, it's good to have you, and I know that you've had a very rich background in sports and sports promotions and in sports representation. I've done a little research on you, and you've had a fascinating career. Tell us about working for ABC Sports and IGM.
Well,
IMG.
This goes all the way back to my college days, and I happened to be out in Hawaii on our spring break, and at the same time, ABC was filming the Hawaiian Open, Golf Open, and one of our alumni was a production assistant with ABC, so I was able to get a job working at the Open, and they needed 4 people to work up in the tower with the announcers, and I had the good fortune to work with Jim McKay. I was his statistician and spotter for the tournament. They even showed him on TV a couple of times, so I got actually on national TV the very first time I was working for ABC. And from there, I ended up working a lot of golf tournaments, a lot of NCAA football games with them on the West Coast. I got to work with Chris Schenkel and Byron Nelson on golf tournaments.
Did you ever work with Frank Gifford?
In the 1973 U.S. Open at Oakmont, I was on the 17th hole. I was the statistician for Frank Gifford.
Wow.
Which was a lot of fun as well. So some great days. and a great experience. And actually, that experience helped me get my first job out of law school as well.
Well, now you said you one of your alums. Where did you go to college?
Went to school. At the time, I was going to school out at Claremont McKenna School out in the Los Angeles area.
That's a very prestigious school.
Well, it probably was easier to get into back then. I don't know if I'd get into it in these days. And actually, I did a lot of work back then. I was the executive director for our dining hall. I was an usher. I was a waiter. I was
like
a bartender.
You're working your way through college.
I was working my way through college. Unfortunately, I wasn't studying a whole lot. So after 4 years of school out there, I had about 3 years worth of credits. So came back east, worked for a year, and then went to Pitt. Actually worked at UPS as a Teamster during the day and went to Pitt at night. Got my grades up, went on to law school at Western New England School of Law in Springfield, Massachusetts. Met my wife there. We got married. Came back here and was looking for a job. And at that time, it wasn't a great market for lawyers, and I was sending my resume around and was not getting many responses, and just happened to read in the newspaper about Tom Rich, a local attorney who was representing Dave Parker, and I thought, all right, I'm going to take a shot here. And I sent him one of those off-the-wall letters with my resume, basically saying I'll wash the windows, I'll scrub the floor, I'll work for free.
And you had all this sports background.
Well, I did not know it at the time. I found out several years later that really what got me in the door was the ABC experience, because Tom thought that he might be able to utilize that for some of his clients. So I got a job with Tom. After 4 or 5 years, became a partner. We were then later acquired by IMG, moved up to Cleveland.
And then to explain the size and scope of IMG to our listeners, it's one of the largest organizations in the world that represents actors, football players, athletes. It's amazing. They have models.
It was Mark McCormick's company, and it was an amazing company. It was far and away the biggest sports representation company in the world at the time. They did everything from books to, as you said, actors and actresses. They did football, they did baseball, they did tennis, they did golf.
No, don't leave out the models. They did modeling
They did
too.
Yes, they had models as well. So they basically did everything. And I worked up there for 4 years. We were their baseball division. And then when that fell apart after 4 years, just a few too many egos in the room, I'm afraid, moved back from Cleveland to Pittsburgh. And after about 6 months, started up my own company, Champions Management, representing professional baseball players.
Now, what are some of the players that you represented?
Over the years, I've worked with Hall of Famer Joe Morgan, Jack Clark here in Pittsburgh.
Joe Morgan with Cincinnati Reds.
Cincinnati Reds, the big red machine, and is in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
He flap his arm every time he was standing at the plate.
Yes, he did. Little Joe, and I could relate to him because he was about the same height as me, 5'8", but he was a dynamo.
He was a great player.
Became quite a well-known baseball broadcaster after that, too.
Now, you represented Manny?
Manny Sanguillen, a lot of the Pirates. Tom had a lot of the Pirates. I ended up with a few as well. I had worked over the years with guys like Tony Pena, Kent DeColvey, Manny. Manny is still one of my best friends.
Manny may be the happiest person that I've ever known in my life. I've never seen him when he wasn't smiling and laughing.
That's absolutely true, and he has such a connection with the fans here in Pittsburgh too.
It's infectious. I mean, when you get around him, you're happy.
For years, we had talked to the Pirates about having him come down to spring training and work there, and for years, the Pirates would not do that. They didn't bring any of their old players down, and then actually, it was when Neil Huntington and Frank Coonley came in, they finally said yes. And I don't think I've ever seen Manny happier than when he got to put the uniform on for the first time in spring training and was out there, not just to be on the field and not just to be with the players, but what really made him happy was the fans. He loved the interaction with the fans. And anyone who's been out to PNC Park should go out to the left field side of the ballpark and go out to Manny's barbecue out there. And once again, he's out there practically every day, not because he's making a lot of additional money from being out there every day, but because he loves seeing the fans.
Well, I know he is, and actually he was a good catcher.
The Pirates did their 100-year team back in 2000, and he was the catcher of the century.
Wow.
I think his lifetime average was 296.
Yeah, he could hit the ball, and he had a good arm.
His misfortune was playing at the same time as Johnny Bench.
Yeah.
So he was really overshadowed by Johnny Bench, but he was a 2-time World Series winner with the Pirates, 71 and 79.
Wow. Well,
and that's a good lead-in too, because it was Manny who introduced me to the Clemente family. Back in 1993, Roberto Jr. and Luis were moving up to Pittsburgh, and Manny wanted me to work with them. And Roberto and I worked together and formed the RBI, Reviving Baseball in the Inner City program here in Pittsburgh, which is now run by the Pirates. And just started working with the Pirates. Went down to Puerto Rico a lot, became a board member.
Right now, Roberto was from Puerto Rico and had played baseball there and then came to the States. And
right.
Do you remember how he got connected with the Pirates?
Well, he started off with Montreal, with the Dodgers. He was signed by the Dodgers. The Dodgers had an all-star outfield at the time, so they didn't really have room for him, so they had him at their AAA team in Montreal, and they were trying to hide him basically, but one of the Pirates scouts noticed him there, and the Pirates, I think, had the worst record in baseball that year, so they had the first draft choice to pick up a player who was not on a major league roster, and they picked Roberto. And
wow.
That's how he came over here to Pittsburgh. He actually started with the Dodgers.
How fortunate that was. Just a stroke of luck.
Absolutely, and that's 55, 56, and then, of course, 1960, they win the World Series. He played an instrumental role in that, and then went on to a great career, MVP.
All-Star games.
All-Star games, Gold Gloves.
Every year.
Batting crowns. And then, of course, really the culmination of his career was in 71 when the Pirates won the World Series, and he was the World Series MVP.
Right, but he was a remarkable player, and a lot of people said that he had the best arm for a right fielder that ever played the game.
And people still say that, and not only his arm, but just his fielding instincts out there, his instincts for the game, his base running, he had a flair for the game. And not only did he produce, but he was a great leader on the team as well.
But when I watched him play, he would make remarkable plays and make it look easy. He was so fluid, and he had a jump on the ball ahead of time, and he was just like a poetry in motion when he was in the field.
Bowie Kuhn, I think, said it best, the old commissioner of baseball, and I'm paraphrasing him here, but he said that Roberto, when you saw Roberto, you saw royalty. He had a touch of royalty in him, and
wow.
and I think that applied to Roberto both on and off the field.
Well, when I lived in Atlanta and I was president of Turner, we owned the Braves, and so I got to know Hank Aaron quite well. And I asked him one day, I said, Hank, a lot of people say you're one of the best players ever to play the game, and of course you are, and they put you up there with Babe Ruth and Willie Mays and all the great players. Who do you think, what would be your top 5? And he started off, he said, well, you got to have Babe Ruth. He said, you got to have Ted Williams. He said, but you got to have Roberto Clemente. And he talked about, and Hank was a pretty good player too.
There were 4 outfielders back in those days, because I remember those days well. Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Frank Robinson, and of course Roberto Clemente. The 4 outfielders, all 4 in the Hall of Fame, obviously. It's hard to beat those 4.
Well, and Roberto went into the Hall of Fame in a little unusual way, tragic in some ways, certainly. But normally when you retire from baseball, after 5 years being out of the game, you are eligible to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And Roberto, who on his last game that he ever played, at his last at-bats, got a hit, which was his 3,000th hit, which is the standard for being an outstanding hitter, if you can hit 3,000 hits. And but just imagine, his very last hit, he was on a plane doing a mission for helping people, and was crashed, and he died. And he was immediately, the next year, he immediately was inducted into the. They didn't wait 5 years.
No, and going back to the 3,000th hit, that's another one like Mazeroski, where I think there were about 13,000 people in the stands. You talk to people now, you'd think there were 40 or 50,000 in the stands.
Right.
And it was something that he ended on that 3,000th hit. And then it's interesting, in the off season, he was managing a Puerto Rican team that played in Nicaragua. In a competition there. And he loved the Nicaraguan people when he was there, had a great time, came back, and it was about a month later that a horrendous earthquake, a really huge earthquake, leveled Managua in the capital of Nicaragua. And people started sending, different countries, including Puerto Rico, started sending supplies there. And Roberto was organizing efforts to bring supplies together and get them over to Nicaragua, and he heard that a lot of the supplies were not getting to the people, that the soldiers were taking the supplies. So he decided that he needed to go himself, and on New Year's Eve he put together a relief package that went on a plane that never should have flown. I think you're going to have Dwayne Reeder in the future here. Dwayne, who has the Clemente Museum, I think has a propeller from that plane. Plane took off, crashed immediately. Everybody died. They never did find Roberto's body. And yes,
wow.
And then, yes, he did go in early. The only other player that's ever had that happen was Lou Gehrig.
Wow, when he died of Lou Gehrig's disease.
Right.
ALS.
Right.
Wow. Well, that's a wonderful story. Well, tell us about Roberto as the person. I mean, a lot of people saw him play. Everybody loved him, but as a person, he was very much like you just mentioned, royalty. He was just a wonderful person to be around.
I did not know him personally. I never met him. Saw him in a few games.
You didn't get to meet him.
Never met him. As I said, I didn't really meet the Clementes until the early 1990s.
Oh, okay.
And that's one of the sad things too. That's one of the things that concerns me, and I know concerns the other family members now, is that it's been a long time since Roberto passed away. One of the things that I think we are concerned about is that people, if you're 40 or older, you remember Roberto Clemente. But for the younger generation coming up, do they remember Roberto? Because there's so many wonderful things to remember about him. What a great ball player he was. What a great leader of the Pittsburgh Pirates he was for so many years. What a great humanitarian he was. It's such a great love story, the relationship between Roberto and Vera, who unfortunately just passed away in the past year. There's so many things about him, and that's actually an interesting note, too. They've tried to do a movie on Roberto.
I've wondered why they never made a movie of his life.
There's been many efforts. I would say 4 or 5 times they've signed movie deals over the years, most recently with Thomas Tull. But they had signed a deal with Walt Disney. They had signed a deal with Sony Pictures. But one of the problems they run into is that there's just so much to Roberto. As I said, the humanitarian, the leader, the ball player, the love story with Vera and himself, that it's hard to put your arms around that and come up with a really coherent script. So over the years, they just never have been able to do anything.
Well, there's got to be somebody in the Pittsburgh region that saw him play, a sports writer,
hopefully
somebody who could write a screenplay about
hopefully it'll get done at some point. There have been some screenplays that have been done, but either they just didn't resonate with the family or with the film company that had gotten them. It just hasn't worked out as of yet. But hopefully, as you said, down the road, hopefully it will. It's a story that really needs to be told.
Well, when you put together a list of icons in Pittsburgh, and you've got Fred Rogers and Tom Starzl, Jonas Salk, Roberto Clemente,
Mario Lemieux, Jim Roddey.
No, not in that league. R.K. Mellon, Andrew Mellon, all of the people that Jack Hines, the people that really put this city together, and sports stars.
Maz, certainly.
Mazeroski and the football teams of Bean Joe Green and Franco Harris and all of those guys. We have had a disproportionate number of people from Pittsburgh that have been really great citizens and remarkable people. And if you include the metropolitan area, you got Jimmy Stewart and or Gene Kelly and all of those people. But Roberto was in a class, a sports class, all by himself. And we've had a lot of great baseball players, certainly, and hopefully we'll have more.
Well, and hopefully, and I appreciate you having me on, and I know you're going to have Dwayne Reeder from the Clemente Museum down the road. It's people like Dwayne Reeder. There's a gentleman, John Sarapare, who has a We 21, who's putting together educational materials regarding and revolving around Roberto's life. We need to keep that memory alive. We need people to remember what he stood for, because those are the kind of qualities, the kind of traits that we want our kids to exhibit, that we should be proud of.
Well, I understand you've been to Puerto Rico and have had some connection with an organization down there that's related to Roberto.
Well, Luis, we had it, the Clemente Foundation up here for a while, and then Luis took it and basically started up again down in Puerto Rico. So he has the Roberto Clemente Foundation down there. He has been focusing in the last few years, on putting together clinics going around the United States, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, putting on clinics for kids, often doing educational stops to schools in addition to that. And Luis is it's kind of still in its formative stages down there. I know they are having a golf tournament the end of April, when the major league teams are going to be playing down there again. So that's something that hopefully the family will be able to build off of, and that will help keep the memory alive. Well,
we need to keep that memory alive. The memory of Roberto Clemente is a memory of wonderful days at the ballpark, a wonderful player and a wonderful human being. And Chuck, you really have had a great career. As a young man, if you had told me that if I could be a sports representative, work around athletes, all of those things, I would have jumped at that chance.
Well, it was 30 very, very interesting years, and for a while there I was telling people I was semi-retired, but now I'm back. I'm teaching at Point Park. I'm selling real estate for Coldwell Banker. I've got 4 grandkids in the area.
You're in the Rotary Club?
I'm in the Rotary Club, Richmar Rotary Club, involved with the Pine Richland School District as well. So I'm keeping very busy and very happy about it too.
Well, that's great. Stay busy and keep doing what you're doing. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking to Chuck Berry, not the singer, not the guitar player, but Chuck Berry of Pittsburgh, who has a rich history of working with athletes and certainly with the Clemente family. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the best of Allegheny County. We hope you'll tune in next Saturday and next Sunday and listen to our show again.
Honey, I'm so excited. I found the perfect solution for us and your parents.
Really?
It's St. Barnabas. For us, they have the Woodlands, a beautiful carriage home community.
Very interesting.
And for your parents, there's the Village. It has an indoor mall with shops, a place to do their banking, and great restaurants.
Plus, we can relax knowing they're safe and secure.
St. Barnabas has everything we're looking for.
Great. Let's schedule a tour. Your mom holds a special place in your heart. She remembers everything about you, your first word, favorite toy, as well as the cute things you did as a child. She's always been by your side, making memories and your favorite cookies. Today, it's getting harder for her to live alone. St. Barnabas Memory Care and Personal Care Services will allow your mom to continue creating memories in a safe, caring environment. To schedule a tour, call 724-443-0700.